Have you ever wondered why some new ideas, products, or even just new ways of doing things completely take the world by storm, while others, even the really brilliant ones, just fizzle out? Well, it's a question that goes way beyond just good marketing. It's actually about the fundamental science of how change happens. Today, we're going to dive into the incredible work of a sociologist named Everett Rogers to understand the hidden forces that really control the spread of innovation.
All right, let's start with a puzzle that is literally right at your fingertips. I mean, look down for a second. Why are you using that specific keyboard layout? Chances are you learned to type on it and you've just never, ever thought to change it. But what if I told you that the keyboard you're using right this second was actually designed on purpose to be inefficient?
So check this out. The QWERTY layout, which goes all the way back to 1873, was designed to physically slow typists down. Why? To keep the keys on those old, clunky mechanical typewriters from jamming into each other. But then in 1932, a professor named August Dvorak created a vastly superior keyboard based on actual science. I mean, look at these numbers. On his keyboard, 70% of typing happens on the home row, compared to just 32% on ours. Your fingers travel over 12 miles a day on a QWERTY keyboard, but only about 1 mile on a Dvorak. It is better in every single measurable way, and yet, here we all are, still using QWERTY.
And this right here, this is what we call the keyboard paradox. It's the perfect and, honestly, kind of frustrating example of a simple reality. The best, most logical, most efficient idea does not always win. So if it's not about just being the best, what on earth is it about? And here is the absolute key. An idea's success has so much less to do with how good it is in a vacuum, and so much more to do with how it fits into the world that already exists. The Dvorak keyboard was a better idea, but it just didn't fit. And it turns out, even the most amazing new ideas almost never sell themselves.
So to really get why, Rogers gives us this fantastic toolkit. And the first part is a set of 5 key attributes. Now, these aren't about the objective facts of the idea itself. Nope. It's about how people perceive it. And that perception, it's everything.
Okay, let's go back to our keyboard puzzle. The Dvorak keyboard had a massive relative advantage. It was obviously better, but it failed like spectacularly on all the other attributes. Compatibility? Absolutely not. It was completely incompatible with the millions of us who already know how to type on QWERTY. Complexity, the time, the cost, the sheer effort of retraining yourself was seen as just way too high. And trialability, you couldn't just try it for a day. You had to fully commit to unlearning a skill you've had for years. The better idea lost because it just didn't fit into our lives.
And if you think compatibility is just about tech, listen to this story. A public health campaign spent 2 years in a Peruvian village trying to get people to boil their drinking water to stop the spread of disease. A total no-brainer, right? Well, it failed completely. Why? Because in their culture, they had this deep-seated belief system about hot and cold foods. Boiled water was classified as hot, which meant it was only for sick people. A healthy person drinking boiled water was seen as bizarre, a total violation of their worldview. That life-saving idea was completely incompatible with their culture.
Okay, so we've looked at the idea itself and its attributes. Now let's flip the coin and look at the other side of the equation. The actual mental journey a person goes through when they decide whether or not to adopt it. Because, adopting a new idea isn't like flipping a switch. It's a whole process. Rogers breaks this down into 5 stages. It all kicks off with knowledge. You just find out a new thing exists. But that's just a start. Then you move into the persuasion stage. This is where you're actively looking for more info, maybe asking around, and you start to form an opinion about it. That leads you to a decision point. It's a yes or no moment. If you say yes, you hit implementation, where you actually start using the new idea. But, and this is so important, it doesn't end there. In the final confirmation stage, you look for signals that you made the right choice. You want to feel good about it, and sometimes this is where you might even change your mind.
All right, now we zoom out. We've seen the idea's attributes and the individual's mental process. But how does an idea leap from one person to an entire society? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because this is where it becomes a social phenomenon.
See, people don't all jump on the bandwagon at once. We all fall into different categories along this classic bell curve. First up, you've got the innovators. These are the venturesome risk-takers, the people who are almost obsessed with trying anything new. They're followed by the really crucial group, the early adopters. They aren't the very first, but they are the respected opinion leaders in their communities. Their thumbs up gives an idea social proof. Then you get the big chunk of the population, the deliberate early majority and the more skeptical late majority. These folks wait until an idea is proven and safe. And finally, you have the laggards, who are the most traditional and are often deeply suspicious of change.
Now, here's the magic. If you plot those groups over time, you don't get a straight line. You get this famous S-curve. It starts out really slow with just the innovators, but once those early adopters, the respected opinion leaders, get on board, something incredible happens. Their social influence kicks interpersonal networks into high gear, creating a takeoff point, a social tipping point, where adoption just explodes and races through the rest of the population.
But how do those networks actually get fired up? Well, a key concept here is something called homophily. It's a fancy word for a really simple, powerful idea. Birds of a feather flock together. We talk to and are influenced by people who are like us. This means new ideas don't usually trickle down from some elite group. No, they spread horizontally, like a wave moving through peer groups of people with similar jobs, similar education, and similar beliefs.
And this isn't just a theory. It was proven in this legendary study of hybrid seed corn back in the day in Iowa. Researchers found that farmers might have first heard about the new seed from a traveling salesman, but that is not what convinced them to try it. The single most persuasive, most influential channel? Talking to their neighbors. A recommendation from a trusted friend, someone just like them who had already tried it, was worth more than any slick sales pitch.
So far, we've mostly been talking about how new ideas succeed. But this framework also forces us to stop and ask a much tougher, much more important question. Is adoption always a good thing? I mean, is all innovation really progress?
Rogers pointed out this huge blind spot in the way we usually think about change, what he called the pro-innovation bias. It's this subtle, often unconscious assumption that any change is inherently good, and that adopting a new idea is always the right thing to do. And this bias can make us completely blind to the negative, sometimes even devastating consequences that a new idea can unleash on a community.
For a really powerful example of this, just listen to this. When missionaries gave steel axes to an Australian Aborigines tribe, it seemed like a simple, helpful gift, an upgrade from their old stone axes. But their entire society was built around the stone axe. Only elder men could own one, which gave them status and authority. Women and children had to borrow them according to really complex social rules. Well, the missionaries came in and just gave the new, better steel axes to everyone, men, women, children, and in doing so, they completely destroyed the traditional status structure, the authority of the elders, and the entire social fabric of the tribe.
And beyond just social disruption, there's another really critical consequence to think about. Who usually adopts a new idea first? Well, typically, it's the people with more money, more education, and more resources. And because they get in early, they also get the biggest benefits, like the first farmers using that hybrid corn, who made what they called windfall profits. And the result? Innovations often make the rich richer, widening the socioeconomic gap between those who adopt early and those who adopt late. So, after all this, what are the big takeaways? Well, first, a great idea is never enough. How it's perceived is what truly matters. Second, people adopt ideas through a predictable mental journey. But third, it's the activation of our social networks, our peers, that creates that tipping point for mass adoption. And maybe most importantly, we have to remember that innovation is never neutral. It always creates winners and losers, and it carries profound social consequences that we have a responsibility to think about. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Look at the world around you. What's a brilliant, better idea? It could be a product, a policy, a social behavior that you see struggling to catch on. And now that you have this toolkit, which of those key factors do you think is holding it back? Is it compatibility? Is it too complex? Is it just not getting to that social tipping point? Think about it.